The afternoon sun filters through the window of my living room, casting a warm, dusty rectangle of light on the wooden floor. From my armchair, I watch the men across the street working on that new high-rise, little figures of purpose against the blue sky. The sounds are distant, muted by the glass, a faint clang of steel, the low hum of machinery. It's a quiet kind of progress from this far away. In my lap rests an old sketchbook, its cover softened and worn smooth at the corners from decades of handling. I hold a carpenter's pencil, its flat, sturdy body familiar in my fingers. I'm not drawing anything, I'm just shading back and forth, the soft rasp of graphite on paper filling the silence as the page slowly turns a uniform, cloudy gray. A pencil is a light thing. You can balance it on a single finger. But the hand that holds it, sometimes it carries the weight of all the things it never built, the weight of foundations never laid, of lines never drawn. I chose a different path, you see. I built a steady life, a secure life, one with a solid roof and no surprises. My hands are proof of that work, and there's a deep, quiet pride in what they've provided for my family. But sitting here, watching that steel skeleton climb higher into the sky, a question settles in my chest, heavy and certain. What is the price of a dream you were too careful to chase? My name is Harold Eugene Mitchell. I've seen 80 winters now, and at this age you find you spend more time looking at the map of where you've been than the road ahead. It's not about regret, not in the way people usually speak of it. It's more about acknowledging the full shape of a life, the parts that were built and the parts that were left as open space. I provided for my family. I was a good husband, a good father. I built something real and lasting with these hands. But that other life, the one drawn only in pencil on a page I put away, it runs alongside this one like a ghost river, a quiet echo. It was 1964. I was a young man, full of the kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing what you're good at. I'd put on my best suit, the one I saved for church, and went downtown to an exhibition at a big architectural firm. The room was bright and smelled of fresh paper and balsa wood. On pedestals all around were these perfect little buildings, miniature cities of the future. I felt a hum inside my chest, a feeling that I was in the right place, seeing the language my soul understood. I wasn't just looking at models. I was looking at my own future laid out in clean lines and clever angles. It felt like stepping into a promise. I walked slowly from one display to the next, admiring the craftsmanship. I could almost feel the flow of people through those tiny hallways, see the light pouring through the windows. The other attendees were all white men, dressed in suits that were sharper than mine, speaking in low, assured tones about load-bearing walls and cantilevered roofs. I listened, trying to catch phrases, trying to feel like I belonged. But soon I noticed the quiet shift in the air. The conversations would dip just a little as I passed. The glances weren't hostile, not at all. They were just curious. A long, slow look that measured me up and found something out of place in their perfect, ordered world. I stopped at a model of a new public library. It was a beautiful thing, all glass and soaring curves designed to let the light in from every direction. It looked like a place where anyone could belong. A few of the firm's architects were standing nearby, talking with a passion that I recognized in myself. As I stepped closer to get a better look at the details, their voices trailed off. A silence fell over their little group, a heavy, thick quiet that pushed all the air out. They just looked at me. It wasn't hatred in their eyes. It was something colder, more clinical. It was the look you give an object that has been placed in the wrong room by mistake. One of the men, a little older than the others, finally broke the stillness. He gave me a smile. It was a perfectly polite, professional smile that never reached his eyes. It was a quick, clean gesture, like closing a file or hanging up a telephone. It was a smile that said nothing and ended everything. Then he turned his back to me, a simple, deliberate movement, and resumed his conversation with the others as if I had evaporated. In that moment, I felt a hot flush creep up my neck. I suddenly felt too big for my suit, my hands too clumsy at my sides. The dream I had walked in with felt like a delicate glass thing that had just shattered on the stone floor. I didn't rush out. I made myself walk slowly, past the other models that now seemed foreign and mocking. I kept my head high and my back straight until I was out on the street, the city noise rushing back in to fill the silence in my head. The sun felt different on my skin. No one in that room had said the word no. No one had barred the door or told me to leave, but they didn't have to. In that clean, quiet, well-lit room, they had shown me the blueprint. They had shown me the invisible walls, the doors without handles, the spaces that were not designed for a man like me to occupy. The world had told me my place without a single word. On the long walk home from that exhibition, the city's architecture, which had always filled me with a sense of wonder, seemed to stand in judgment. Every sharp line and pane of glass felt like a wall. A part of me, the young, hot-blooded part, wanted to turn around, march back into that pristine room, and demand an explanation, to ask them what was so wrong with my face, my suit, my presence. But another voice, a much older and more tired voice that had been passed down to me, whispered a different counsel. It told me that dignity was a quiet thing, a shield you hold up not to win a fight, but simply to avoid being broken. So I swallowed the fire in my throat and kept walking. For decades, I framed that day as the moment I made a sensible choice. I told myself and anyone who asked that I chose a career as a technical draftsman because it was a sure thing. It was practical, it was steady, and it built a good, solid life for my wife and children. I was proud of that choice, and I still am. But looking back from the vantage point of 80 years, I can see the other truth hiding just beneath. I wasn't just choosing security. I was choosing a smaller room. I was running from the cold, quiet judgment of that hall and building a life within walls I understood, walls I could control because the world had already shown me the ones I would never be allowed to design. I've wrestled with that memory my whole life, turning it over and over like a smooth, worn stone in my pocket. Was I a coward for not fighting harder? Should I have been louder, more insistent? Maybe. But anger is a simple thing to understand when it's shouted. You can brace for it, you can shout back. The thing I faced that day wasn't loud, it was a polite, empty smile. It was a silence that gently and firmly told me I did not belong. You can't raise your fist to a ghost. And so, the conflict was never with those men in the room. The real battle was the one I fought inside myself every day after to find peace with the man I became instead. The screen door creaked open last Tuesday, and in walked my granddaughter Maya, bringing a gust of city air and that boundless energy of youth. She's a newly licensed architect, and her eyes sparkled with a fire I recognized, a fire I had once carefully banked in my own heart. She sat across from me, her fingers dancing across the smooth glass of a tablet, and pulled up a set of blueprints. "Look, Grandpa," she said, her voice full of that beautiful, unbreakable confidence. "It's for the community center. We're creating breathing room, a real dialogue with the neighborhood." I saw the passion in her face and felt a warmth spread through my chest, a pure and uncomplicated pride. She spoke a language I understood in my bones but had never been allowed to speak myself. She talked about lines that embrace, and as I looked at the graceful curves on her screen, I couldn't help but see them against the sharp, cold lines of that exhibition hall from so long ago. Her world was about opening doors, inviting people in. The world I had tried to enter was one of quiet, invisible walls and polite, empty smiles. I felt a swell of pride so large it almost hurt, a deep, aching joy. In her freedom I saw the true cost and the profound, unintended gift of my own caution. She was building a world I could only sketch in secret. I just nodded, letting her words wash over me. I didn't tell her about that day in 1964. That was my story to carry, not her burden to inherit. My silence back then, my careful retreat, had bought her this confident voice now. That's a complicated kind of inheritance, isn't it? She gets the blueprint and the freedom to build, and I get the quiet satisfaction of knowing I helped lay a foundation she never had to see. I looked from the bright screen in her hands to the gray sketch in my lap, and I saw the whole story. Her future wasn't the one I had lost. It was the one I had unknowingly been working toward all along. For most of my life, I told myself a simple story, and I believed it with all my heart. I told myself that on that day in 1964, I had chosen wisdom over passion. I chose prudence. It felt like a virtue, a shield I was forging for the family I hadn't even started yet. I was protecting them from the world's coldness, from the sting of a door quietly closed in their face. By picking the safer path, the steady job as a draftsman, I thought I was being a good man, a responsible man. I was building a wall against disappointment, and I was proud of how solid and dependable that wall was. It was my quiet victory, but the truth, when it finally arrives, doesn't knock. It just sits with you in the quiet of an afternoon until you're ready to see it. Watching Maya, so full of fire and building a world without fear, I understood. The walls I built to keep the hurt out also kept me in. My prudence wasn't a shield, it was a cage, a very comfortable and secure one, but a cage nonetheless. I had spent a lifetime mistaking the absence of a wound for a sign of strength. I didn't protect myself from the world's judgment. I simply agreed with it. I accepted the small space they offered me and called it my own choice, my own safe harbor. The hardest truth to learn is that real protection isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about building a spirit strong enough to stand in the rain and not be washed away. I thought I was saving myself from being broken, but what I really did was forfeit the chance to see how strong I could have been if I had risked it. Dignity isn't found in a life without struggle. It's found in the heart that keeps beating, honestly and bravely, even after it's been bruised. I didn't need smaller dreams to survive. I needed a bigger heart, one that could hold the dream and the disappointment all at once and still choose to build. Sometimes I watch the young folks heading out in the morning, dressed for interviews or their first day at a new job. I see the hope in their walk, but I also see the carefulness. It's in the way they straighten a tie one last time or smooth a skirt that doesn't need smoothing. They're checking their armor. When they walk into a room full of strangers, I wonder what they're measuring. Are they calculating how much of their true self is safe to show? Are they quieting the louder parts of their spirit just for a little while to make sure they fit? It's a subtle thing, this negotiation. It's the silent question you ask a room, is there space for me here? And the tragedy is, we often decide on the answer ourselves before the room has even had a chance to speak. People ask me sometimes, especially the younger ones in my family, how I managed to get through it all without letting bitterness take root. They see an old man who is, for the most part, at peace. They don't see the long, quiet conversations I had with myself over the years. They don't understand that what they call peace was a choice I had to make every single morning, like choosing what shirt to wear. Bitterness is easy. It's a warm coat on a cold day, but it's heavy. And after a while, you can't take it off. I think real strength isn't about never feeling the anger or the hurt. It's about feeling it all, letting it pass through you, and then deciding what you'll build with the space it leaves behind. It's a quiet, daily kind of work. I've learned to pay attention to the different kinds of silence. There's the comfortable quiet between two people who know each other well, but there's another kind, the one that fills a room when a difficult truth is being avoided. It's a heavy, active thing. I see it sometimes when a person with a good idea holds their tongue in a meeting, waiting for someone more important to speak first. I recognize that silence. It's the sound of a small wall going up, a choice being made to be safe instead of heard. We build these little walls all the time, brick by silent brick, thinking they protect us. But every small truth we swallow, every idea we bury, makes the space we live in just a little bit smaller. You don't even notice until you turn around one day and find you're in a room with no windows. The sun has moved across the floor, and the rectangle of light is longer now, touching the edge of my chair. I'm still sitting here, the sketchbook open on my lap, the page now a soft, uniform gray. Across the street, the men are packing up for the day, their silhouettes moving against the orange sky. That building of theirs is a little bit closer to being finished. I look down at this pencil in my hand. It's still just a simple tool, light as a feather, but the weight I feel in my hand now is different. It's not just the weight of the buildings I didn't draw, but also the weight of the foundation I laid for Maya to build upon. It's a strange and heavy and beautiful thing to realize your quietest sacrifice became someone else's loudest song. So what is the price of a dream you were too careful to chase? I used to think the answer was a simple loss, a ghost of a life that walked beside my own. But I see it differently now. The price was my own architecture, the grand designs I kept locked away. And the payment? The payment was seeing my granddaughter draw a blueprint for a world with more room in it, with doors that open for her without question. You don't get to choose what your legacy looks like. Sometimes the life you build isn't the one you designed on paper. It's the one that makes space for the next person to draw their own lines freely and without fear. That's a different kind of blueprint, I suppose, one I'm finally learning to read. A man spends his whole life learning the difference between the things that are solid and the things that are real. The concrete under your feet is solid. The steel beams reaching for the sky are solid. You can measure them. You can put your hand on them. You know exactly where they begin and end. But the things that truly shape you, the things that draw the real map of your life, are often invisible. They are the expectations in a quiet room, the weight of a polite smile, the silent understanding of what is and is not for you. These are the structures that hold up a world, and they don't appear on any blueprint you'll ever see. It's a simple thing to fight a wall you can see. You can lean your shoulder into it, you can chip away at it with a hammer, you can gather your strength and try to knock it down. But how do you fight a wall that lives only in the air between people? How do you tear down a boundary that was built inside your own heart by the quiet chill of a room you stood in 60 years ago? You can't, not with your hands. You first have to learn to see it, to name it for what it is, and that is the work of a lifetime. The walls we can't see are the hardest to tear down. A city's story is told not just in the buildings that stand, but in the spaces between them and in the shadows they cast. It's told in all the dreams that never became blueprints. I wonder about the quiet architectures that have shaped your own life, the invisible walls you might have learned to live within. You don't have to tell me, of course, but maybe you could tell someone you trust, or perhaps just share this thought with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes just acknowledging the walls we cannot see is the first step to understanding what they're truly made of. It's a conversation worth having, even if it's only with yourself.